Welcome to HTO Football. I'm your host Andrew Timbrell, and today we're joined by Paris Saint-Germain fan and French football expert Jonathan Johnson. We set him the task of choosing a PSG 11 spanning over the last 2 decades. Let's see how he got on. Well, welcome to HTO Football, Jonathan, once again. It's great to have you on the show. This is your second cap. Are you well?
Yeah, I'm doing very well, thanks. And yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Not too bad. I believe you've dropped by to submit your HTO homework for us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going on 20 years now that I've been following PSG, either as a fan or as a journalist. So it's about time that I picked an 11 of players that sort of spans the entire time that I've been following the club.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking through my notes this morning, and you've got a bit of a challenge on your hands. I don't know what formation you're going to pick because there's so many talented strikers, particularly in this last decade, right? Since the Qatari investment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there's been a lot of that going around at the moment. PSG are about to celebrate their 50th birthday as well, and they were asking a bunch of us journalists to sort of elect the sort of legendary 11. So it's it's been a very interesting time. I mean, I think the one thing that I would say is that what players achieved at the club doesn't actually always mean that they're fondly remembered by the PSG fans. So I think there's a lot of players who really struck a chord with the fans because of either the way that they felt towards the club or the way that they behaved towards the club.
Mm. And then looking at the early 2000s, I mean, you mentioned the word legend there. We've got a few classic names that I'm sure, well, we'll see when you do your lineup. But there's people like Pochettino that was there, Arteta, Laurent Robert, what a left foot he had, Nicola Anelka, the much maligned. I'm looking forward to that Netflix documentary, that's for sure. But yeah, so what formation have you gone with, Jonathan?
It's very, very difficult to choose. But I think in order to get sort of the most talented players, certainly the players that sort of meant the most, I think going for a 3-4-3 probably works out best.
Cool. Right, let's crack on.
3-4-3 with like a diamond midfield.
Okay. The personnel you've gone for, yeah. Cool. So in goal, who you gone for?
I think it has to be Navas. I mean, in my entire time following PSG, goalkeeper's always been a problematic position. There's been a lot of talented players that have sort of come through in that position. Notably the likes of Mikel Landreau, Salvatore Sirigu, Kevin Trapp. But for me, Navas is by far and away the most talented goalkeeper, the most consistent. And although he's only been there for the most part of the season, I think he's already proved that he is worthy of being, sort of put in there as the best goalkeeper.
He's got the trophy cabinet to back that up as well, that choice, hasn't he? Yeah. And then your back
Absolutely.
three.
So the defence, I mean, for me, it's a mix of players who sort of meant a lot to the club and who have achieved a lot over the years. I don't think you can really name a PSG defence without putting in Thiago Silva. I put Marquinhos in there with him as well, despite the fact Marquinhos regularly plays in midfield under Thomas Tuchel. And for me, I think probably the surprise inclusion for some people, maybe not that many people if they know me and have known me since I've been following PSG, but I'd put Mario Yepes in that back three as well. Very, very talented Colombian international. Perhaps wasn't the best of times to be playing for PSG when he signed for them, but still made a big impact. So that back three would be Silva, Marquinhos, and Yepes. But as you mentioned earlier, Pochettino very, very popular with PSG fans, even though he wasn't around for too long. I mean, it's very difficult going for a defence without fullbacks. But PSG have been blessed with a lot of good left backs, the likes of Maxwell, the likes of Juan Pablo Sorin. but not as many right backs.
Mm.
If I had to have chosen some fullbacks, I probably would have gone either Maxwell or Sorin and Jallet. But I think to accommodate everyone best, I'll go for a 3-man defence.
Yeah, was Gabriel Heinze at PSG?
Yeah, Heinze was there, but just don't ask PSG fans about him these days after he went on to play for Marseille afterwards.
We'll move on.
Very, very, very talented player. Was
Yeah.
excellent with PSG, but not fondly remembered in Paris anymore.
Just touching on Thiago Silva there quickly, Jonathan. I mean, when I look at his career, I think he also a great choice because for me, he made his name at PSG as a great. Really, wasn't necessarily a great that joined like a Ibrahimovic, for example.
I mean, he was still very highly thought of when he was at AC Milan and joined PSG. I mean, a lot of people were sort of lauding him as the best defender in the world, which I always think is a very dubious tag to place on anyone, whether it's, best defender, best midfielder, best striker. But, he came with a big price tag, lots of expectations. And although his leadership has been a bit iffy at times, I'm one of those who believes that he should have stepped aside from all forms of captaincy after leading the Brazil national team and really struggling on home soil in the World Cup back in 2014. But no, he's been a great servant to PSG, very, very consistent performer, and he deserves to have a good send off if this is the end of his time with PSG. But at the moment, the whispers are in Paris that, there could still be a deal done where he lowers his salary and ends up staying on after the Champions League finishes. Yeah. So, watch this space with regards to his future. But, for sure, for everything that he's achieved since joining, he definitely deserves a place in this 11.
Yeah, fantastic player. I did, before we get onto the midfield, I made a note. It says here, Arrow, please pick Mamadou Sakho. But
yeah, I mean, Sakho as well, is a very, is a good shout. I mean, this is the problem when you can only pick sort of an 11 of players. Some of the guys that we've already mentioned that didn't make the cut. I'd probably put them on a subs bench if there was one.
Sure.
Sakho is one of those guys, who's a very, very important part of PSG's identity before the Qatari arrival and just afterwards. It's just a bit of a shame, really, looking at his career now, the way it's panned out. That move for him from PSG to Liverpool could have been really good. Had sort of established himself in the French national team, and then the sort of the doping scandal came along, and it seemed like Klopp, lost confidence in him after that, even though it was ultimately proved to be nothing. And that spelled the beginning of the end of his time at Anfield, really. And it's a shame that he's not really kicked on as much as he could have done, because he's always had a lot of talent. Was rightly heralded as one of the best youth academy graduates that PSG have ever had. Yet he just never really developed his game after moving away from PSG. He always had certain flaws that he never managed to stamp out, and it's a shame because given his build, and his ability, he really could have been one of Europe's best. But I would say he's been very unlucky with injuries as well. And if the rumours are true, and there are French clubs looking at bringing him back to Ligue 1, it would be great to see him play the final few years of his career in his native France.
Definitely. So moving on to the midfield then. You've got 4 in there, yeah? Yeah,
and I think when you play in a diamond, I'm going to have to go with Thiago Motta at the bottom of that diamond. He's one of those players that, I was never really that convinced by Motta before he joined PSG. He's one of those guys that you watch on TV and, okay, you can see that they have talent. But more often than not, when you're seeing Thiago Motta on your TV screen, he was getting involved in some sort of aggro, getting a yellow card, red card or whatever, or trash talking somebody. But when he arrived at PSG, and I could watch him for a full 90 minutes, it's only then that you can really appreciate just how good a player he was technically. And he was absolutely superb for PSG, really was the glue that held that midfield together. And it's going to be a very narrow diamond because I'm going to have to add Marco Verratti and Blaise Matuidi either side of him. I mean, they together, the three of them were superb at times for PSG. Very, very difficult to find, better midfielders than those three.
There's a bit of everything
in my time following PSG. Yeah, there is. You've got the hard work of Matuidi. You've got the technical brilliance of Verratti, and you've got the mind and vision of Motta, who was also fantastic technically as well. And the three of them just worked so well together when they were in their prime. It's just a real shame that PSG couldn't, sort of have that European progress to boast that, that sort of understanding in midfield deserved, because it wasn't just the midfield of that team. You had the attack that worked very well with Zlatan Ibrahimovic being the focal point of it as well. But the whole reason I'm putting them in a midfield triangle is to accommodate Ronaldinho sort of at the tip of it. I mean, there's nothing more that you can really say about Ronaldinho that's not already been said. Fantastic player. Some moments of absolute magic. A sublimely talented player. Somebody who, in the days before the Qatari era at PSG, really gave the fans reason to dream. I think there's a lot of people who would have liked to have seen him stayed in Paris for a bit longer, but some of the memories that PSG fans have of him, to this day, still create such emotions, and it's been very hard for a lot of players to sort of come close to that at any point in recent history. I would like to give a shout out to Nene as well. Another guy, very, very talented Brazilian player, somebody who was an important player, a bit like Saka, important just before the Qataris arrived at PSG, played a role at the beginning and then was eventually pushed out, but for a while was their star player. As I've already said, it is a very, very difficult task picking the best 11 players of my time following PSG.
Well, you've done what any good manager does, and you make room, don't you, for the luxury? I think Ronaldinho, for me as well, Jonathan, I always say to people, there was a two-year period, maybe 2.5-year period, where I know Messi and Ronaldo have taken the game to new heights, but he was frightening for a 3-year spell at Barcelona. It was just scary, really.
Yeah, he was. He's phenomenon. I think the difference between Ronaldinho and then Messi and Ronaldo is the fact that Ronaldinho, you could tell at every moment the stuff that he was doing was just through sheer joy of the game. And he's a unique talent. It kind of amuses me today that a lot of people say that what Neymar does on the pitch is disrespectful, because I think if you had Ronaldinho doing the same thing on the pitch, these days, I wonder if people would be saying the same thing, because they essentially are capable of very similar skills, and I don't remember anyone really speaking negatively of Ronaldinho when he was pulling off those sorts of tricks.
He was never called a show pony or anything like that, was he?
No, not that I can recall. People have very fond memories of Ronaldinho, which sort of adds to the the frustration of Neymar's spell with PSG. It's like you can't really enjoy everything that you're seeing from him on the pitch, because there seem to be so many people trying to snipe at him all the time.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the man at the base of that 4 midfield there, Thiago Motta, he reminds me, and this is a completely different position, but he reminds me of a player, one of my favourite players of all time, Riquelme, who seems to just play the game at his own pace for 90 minutes and gets away with it. Is that something you observed when you see him live? Because he seems to just be able to keep his composure in all areas of the pitch at all times.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that, and I think that is a trait that is typical of every player who has such a high footballing IQ. Like Riquelme, like Motta. When guys are that intelligent on the pitch. I mean, Silva's also in the same bracket, Maldini as well. Guys who, because they're so far ahead of the game in their own minds, they don't necessarily have to physically move themselves too much across the pitch because they'll already, work out exactly where they need to be at just the right time in order to make an interception. Somebody like Nesta as well is another good example.
Guti, I was thinking of as well.
Yeah, again, but Guti was also had sort of the flair that enabled him to sort of make these ridiculous blind backheel passes from crazy positions. But no, you're right. When you have that much footballing intelligence, I don't think it necessarily means that you have to be playing football at the same sort of fast pace that that we see the game being played out these days.
Yeah, I just had to shout out Riquelme there. I just think he's one of the most underrated footballers of all time. But anyway, front three then. This is, Jonathan, I don't know how you're going to do this.
Well, if you speak to any PSG fan or follower or journalist from sort of my era, the guy that you cannot leave out of this starting 11 is Paoletta. So he's immediately in there,
Wow.
which, makes it obviously very, very difficult, for what comes next. And for me, I have ended up going with Zlatan and Cavani in their front three. So no Neymar. Like I said, if there was a bench, I would definitely have been able to accommodate them all in the team. But if we're just doing the starting 11, it would be Zlatan, Cavani, Paoletta. Cavani, like Paoletta, I don't think you can leave him out of this sort of discussion because of the emotional bond that he formed with the fans. The fact that he was the real key performing player when the team weren't doing so well. Emery came in, and Cavani was a guy reborn. Paoletta was a consistent performer in PSG sides that weren't, as talented as the ones today. And Zlatan, I mean, what a player! I don't think that there's been anyone else during the Qatari era that has been as tailor-made for PSG and what they needed as Zlatan. I think he was exactly what PSG needed at that moment in time, both on the pitch and off it. So that for me would be my star 11.
Pauletta's a great fantasy football World Cup pick, wasn't he, back in the day?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's very underrated. Always has been, both at international level and club level. Didn't perhaps get the silverware that his ability merited, but didn't get that out of loyalty because he decided to stick with PSG at a time when bigger clubs came calling for him. And I think that deserves recognition because to be able to put up the sort of numbers that he put up with PSG when they weren't doing very well, when they didn't have the sort of service that he would have enjoyed today if he'd been playing during the Qatari era. I think he deserves recognition for the fantastic service that he did for PSG. And it's not just sort of sympathy or nostalgia pick either. The guy really was the best performer sort of at that time when I was a season ticket holder. So it's very difficult to not put him in there. There's a few other talented guys as well who were around at that time. Sylvain Armand, who was a good servant with PSG. Managed to see out a couple of seasons under the Qataris as well. And Jérôme Ratin as well was a very, very talented player. Arguably achieved a little bit more with Monaco, considering that he was part of that Monaco side that got to the Champions League final. But still a very talented guy, wonderful left foot. So, I could have made up so many different variations of a star 11 for PSG, but somebody like Paoletta was always going to stay in there.
What I like about your pick, Jonathan, is that there's a mix of that you've tugged on the heartstrings a little bit with the some really passionate players that are close to the club and their culture, but also you've got some no-brainers in there, i.e. Ronaldo, Zlatan as well. So it's a good pick. I wonder if we do that in 10 years' time, that there might be a certain Kylian Mbappe in there, maybe, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the temptation is to put in players that are very talented, that are going to achieve great things in the game and probably achieve great things with the club. But I think it's also impossible to recognise what's been done in the past. Guys who can't add to their histories, but PSG are just blessed with so many fantastic attacking talents. I mean, somebody like Anelka, you mentioned him earlier, sublimely talented, but PSG fans don't really have that fond memories of him, because of the.
I don't think most clubs
there was
do.
never any. Exactly. There was never any real sort of like loyalty there, and I think PSG fans, especially the ones that predate the Qatari era, are very, very good at recognizing the better players who have served the club well, and have stuck by the club in difficult times. And it's the guys like Pauletta, definitely among those Yepes as well.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you an A+ for that, Jonathan. As the teacher, I've got to say it's a fantastic piece of homework there. Thanks for doing that. Handed in on time as well. Always good.
Awesome.
All right, take care, Jonathan. Yeah.
And you. Cheers, mate.
See you later.
Speak soon. Bye.
Bye. Not a bad selection there by Jonathan at all. If you'd like to let us know your thoughts about your PSG 11, you can tweet us your choices at HTO Football. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel that's under the same name at HTO Football. This week we announced our Fantasy Football League. For more details on that, check out our Twitter. Again, make sure you read the post carefully in order to be in the hunt for prizes. I'm off now to draft my team up, so I'll see you soon, guys.